the 30th of June 2021. Now call the meeting open at 9 a.m. and wish everyone a happy new year, from a financial perspective at least. I don't believe we have any requests for leave of absence or apologies. We unfortunately don't have one of our ministers with us today, so I will lead us in the Lord's Prayer. Our Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Okay, we'll now move on to recognition of the traditional owners, and hand over to Councillor Duff as the Indigenous Affairs Portfolio Holder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, councillors, we'll have the agenda in front of us. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest to disclose to the meeting? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a couple. I'd like to inform the meeting I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 14.1, upgrades to bathrooms at South Burnett Aquatic Centre, Nanango. The nature of my interest arises because my sister-in-law and business partner works as a swimming instructor for Summer Country Aquatics at South Burnett Aquatic Centre. So I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting's being held while the matter is discussed and voted on. I'd also inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 13.2, electric vehicle charging station. This declarable conflict of interest arises because my family business holds a contract of supply for services. The matter was resolved at the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting on the 2nd of June, resolution number 2021-88. And I'd like to inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 16.1, notice to rescind a council resolution, South Burnett Regional Council lease amendment with South Burnett Community Hospital Foundation. The nature of my conflict is because I am a member of the hospital board, the South Burnett Community Hospital Board, and I propose to stay away from the meeting where the place where the meeting's being held while the matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll note that Councillor Shoemaker will be absent in relation to 14.1 and 16.1, and then in relation to 13.2, Mr CEO, is the resolution of council from the committee meeting able to be carried through to this meeting? That'll hold as resolved. Thank you. So Councillor Shoemaker will participate in 13.2 on the basis of the resolution from the prior committee meeting. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on then to... sorry, Councillor Shoemaker, please proceed.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I believe you have a conflict of interest as well from... Just there noted on the screen in relation to the EV charging station as well.
Oh, yes. I've previously declared. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Yes. Oh, yes, that's going to be in the Alfred Street car park, General Manager. Yes, thank you. I'll propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you very much, Councillor Shoemaker, for bringing that to my attention. Yes. Okay, very good. Well, let's move on then to I don't think we have any deputations or petitions, so we'll move on to 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of May 21 at page 7. Recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held 26 May 2021 be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Any comments, questions, concerns, councillors, in relation to the minutes? If not, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.1 is the business outstanding table for ordinary council meeting at 25, and we'll go to that now. Councillors, the recommendation is that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter. Seconder, Councillor Duff. Thank you. Councillors wishing to raise any issues? Speakers for or against? Comments in relation to the table? Questions? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just wanting, through you, Mr Mayor, to ask the General Manager, O'May, just what's happening with the dip yards, the tender was to go out for the Nanango, Proston and Wandai dipyards. Just wondering where that's at. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I did receive confirmation from our property team, and all those documents are ready to go, so it's basically just waiting to be uploaded onto the tender platform now, so I'll expect over the next week we'll have that one out. Yeah, I thought it was ready, but yeah, I did confirm last week with them that it was right to go, so we'll see that out very shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to flag that because I think that there's quite a bit of interest, and we just need to, when we do go out to tender, that we just need to make sure that everyone who's interested is aware. So I'll just if you could let me know when it's out to tender, then I can let those interested parties know that to keep an eye out for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. General Manager, just a couple of items there as well. In relation to Council approve a review into the overgrown allotments, which is resolution there on the 24th of February. See there that the overgrown allotment policy is with compliance to formulate a draft position. I suppose, time frame around that. When would you expect to see that coming to a standing committee?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we have actually with this one had a bit of trouble. We're talking to other councils about trying to find if there is, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of councils actually have that. So that's probably held us up a little bit getting responses back. But yeah, I think in the first quarter of next year we'll have that that back in. So yeah, we were hoping to find something that we could be consistent with some other councils. But yeah, it appears that most people don't really have that. No, most other councils don't have a policy, so we're sort of developing one from scratch.
Thank you, General Manager. And also in relation to the illegal occupation policy position document, just again some timing around that.
Yeah, we've got a draft put together, but really just as a team need to get back and get something. So yeah, it's really something. Yeah, again, looking at the first quarter, probably one that we need to have discussions with council on. Bring that back and probably get some direction on the intent of that policy. So we have got a draft there, but yeah, just depending on where council really wants to take that one, and that'll probably, in conjunction with I think the organisational review, will be a good one to talk through with that as well. So yeah, again, I would think first quarter of next year. Of next financial year.
Thank you. Just moving along, General Manager Meehan, new and replacement street name signs. Are we now moving to transitioning into the new signs as they're required to be replaced?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we're rolling them out. I've got the first of the roundabout signs in my office the other day. They look pretty good. We are going to be talking to local suppliers about making the roundabout signs locally because they're not to the same reflective standard as a street blade. So we'll be consulting locally to see if we can start manufacturing those here as well in the South Burnett.
Excellent. Thank you, General Manager. And also in relation to the Wandai roundabout, there's their officers undertake further consultation and design works. Probably just an update for Council in terms of how the design's going and what your plans are for the consultation strategy moving forward.
Yeah, I'll probably take that one on notice, Mr. Mayor. James will be here at the standing committee next week and he can probably put that on an update for you if that's preferable.
That'd be great. Thanks, General Manager. And I suppose the final one I had was just freehold land holdings. Councillor Shoemaker had raised a matter in relation to that, the resolution around that, General Manager. We've got some work happening. Any progress updates on that one?
We've had we basically held that one till July. We've had an initial internal meeting, sort of putting together sort of the work in progress for the team, and I believe we were coming back. I think the first week in August we'd had actually penciled in to come back and talk to council probably about that strategy. From memory. So yeah, I think it was the first week. We've got a community engagement day. We were looking at piggybacking on the back of, so in the first week of August.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one that I had was in relation to we had a resolution that a complete review of the South Burnett Regional Council's local laws and subordinate laws be undertaken during 21-22 as part of the 21-22 operational plan. I know we're looking at the operational plan this afternoon in our budget committee meeting. Is that still on the agenda, that resolution to be completed within the next 12 months? at this stage?
No, well, that was in the draft operational plan we presented. That was put into the 22-23 financial year. It wasn't put in next year's operational plan, and that was purely just there's no budget in next year for that activity.
Yeah, thank you, GM. So we do have a resolution there in relation to that. So we probably need to change that resolution, or is it possible, I guess if that's the desire of council, to have a report brought back perhaps in first quarter review as to what the cost would be to complete that local law review? What are your thoughts, Mr. CEO?
Yeah, I think that's probably the appropriate way. We can bring a report back with a costed out estimate, and then we can do a budget amendment or amendment to the operational plan at that activity and bring it forward if that's council's wishes.
Thanks, General Manager. Okay, was there anything else? Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering about the signage for the dams, where that's at. I know that they were sent back and powder coated, those old frames, but what's happening with the actual signage, and when do you envisage that they will be up?
I believe there's a lot of that is coming back at the moment. We've received some of the powder coating and that back, so they're basically going up as we're in here. So yeah, they're imminent.
Yeah.
Councillor Duff, any
Just
further
one more.
questions?
Sorry, just one more. Just with the last one is about the Glendon Street shared zone, and I was just at one of the meetings I asked if there was a report could come back on whether the garden beds could be utilised instead of putting garden beds in the KTP, whether we could actually use that space for car parking, and just wondering where that's at.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is we answered that at the standing committee, that the garden beds are part of the design and that they couldn't be turned into car parks for reversing over the crossing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought there was some that you were going to look at, that there was an option that we could consider changing them back to car parks.
No, through Mr. Mayor, unless the council directs, we haven't made any changes to the design. Happy to go back through the standing committee and have a look, but I think Alan and I answered it because the question was around particularly the ones down in Alfred Street that, we can't remove the garden beds and turn them into parking because they'll reverse over the crossings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was of the opinion that we were still coming back with more information about all of that. But okay, thank you.
General Manager, maybe it's possible just to review those standing committee meeting minutes from the first week in June, from the last infrastructure standing committee meeting, and if there was a question on notice, perhaps that could come back to the next standing committee meeting in July.
Yeah, I'll have a look, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Apologies if we have missed it.
If you could, yeah, thanks very much. Okay, anything further on that? Anything further on 8.1? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 9.1 is Acting Chief Executive Officer, and we have recommendation that South Burnett Regional Council approves the Chief Executive Officer leave from 1 July 2021 to 20 July 2021 and appoints General Manager Finance and Corporate as Acting Chief Executive Officer. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Henson. Seconder, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Mr. CEO, I hope you enjoy what has been a well-earned break. Yes. 9.2, meeting dates for the ordinary meetings of Council Standing Committee meetings and also general meetings and budget meetings can be found at 41. Recommendation is that the Council adopts the dates, times and locations for ordinary meetings of Council Standing Committees, general meetings as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconder, Councillor Jones. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.3, LGAQ 125th Annual Conference motion request at 45. And the officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council resolves to submit the following resolutions to the 2021 Local Government Association of Queensland 125th Annual Conference. A, that the LGAQ call on the state and federal governments to review the road maintenance performance contracts with councils with a view to increasing the amounts provided to council. B, that the LGAQ calls upon the state government support to confirm an ongoing commitment past the current financial year to the state waste levy annual prepayment. C, that the LGAQ call on the state and federal governments to review the regulatory approvals process in terms of renewable energy projects and a coordinated approach to ensure social and economic benefits are delivered in asset communities. And D, that the LGAQ reaffirms its call on the Queensland State Government to review the collection of roadside grazing permits fees by drought-declared local authority roadside grazing permits, allowing individual councils to make the decision by resolution in relation to the collection of any local or state government fees. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Councillor Shoemaker, yes, please proceed.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor, just probably a question just with Resolution B, that LGAQ calls upon the state government support to confirm an ongoing commitment past the current financial year to the state waste levy. I just wondered if the word support, I probably was just a bit, it seemed a little clunky, maybe the word support needs to go state government to confirm an ongoing commitment past, remove support. I think it's just something I picked up.
Yep.
A bit clearer.
Thanks, Councillor. And if I may, Mayor, since we're having a chat, we just tried to panel beat them into the resolution. So we took the ideas from the requests from the standing committee and just turned them into what the wording would look like for the agenda. So yeah, happy if council's happy to make any changes.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Any other changes? Councillor Jones, any thoughts? Thank you.
Just in regards to what Councillor Shoemaker, raised, maybe we can put the word maintain, state government maintain an ongoing commitment. Is that feasible or?
Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, thank you. Councillor Henson seconds. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.6, adoption of the South Bennett Regional Council, 9.7, adoption of the South Bennett Regional Council Public Interest Disclosure Policy, Strategic 046, can be found at 57 and it's recommended that the South Bennett Regional Council public interest disclosure policy, statutory, this one, 046, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Fraloff, thank you. Councillor Potter seconds. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.8, adoption of the South Bennett Regional Council debt policy for 2021/22, statutory 010, can be found at 63. And the recommendation is, of course, that the South Bennett Regional Council debt policy 2021/2022, statutory 010, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder Councillor Jones, thank you. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Moving on to 9.9, which is adoption of the South Bennett Regional Council leave without pay policy, statutory 034 at 69. And the recommendation is that the South Bennett Regional Council leave without pay policy, statutory 034, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Fraloff, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.10, adoption of the South Bennett Regional Council water restrictions policy, strategic 015 at 76. Recommendation is that the South Bennett Regional Council water restrictions policy, strategic 015, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Fraloff, seconder Councillor Potter. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.11, rate exemptions and remissions, additions to approved list, property numbers 208170, 252190, 109980 and 229980 at 94. And of course, this has been to the Finance, Executive and Corporate Standing Committee meeting and was discussed in confidential, as a confidential matter there. And as a result of that, the committee has recommended that South Bennett Regional Council agree to provide a rate remission for property number 208170, 252190 and 109980 and amend the existing rate remission for property number 229980 commencing from 1 July 2021 at a total cost to council of $9,369.82. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder. Councillor Henson, thank you. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.12 is a request for the deferral of sale of land for overdue rates on property number 217700. That one is at 96. And again, this has been to the Standing Committee where it's been recommended up to Council. The South Bennett Regional Council accede to the request to defer for 12 months the sale of land for overdue rates action for property number 259260, 259270, 259850, 259240, 259340, 260140. Am I at the right page? Oh, no, I'm on the wrong one, am I? Sorry, Lynelle. Have I skipped one? Oh, yep, 912. I turned the wrong page. I'll start again. Okay, but again, this went to the committee. It's recommended that South Bennett Regional Council defer the sale of land for overdue rates action for a period of 6 months on the condition that the applicant seek financial advice in relation to his personal circumstances. The applicant contacts Council by 31 December 2021 with a suitable payment arrangement that pays the outstanding balance and future rate balances off within 3 years, and interest will be waived for the 6-month period. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, second, I thank you, Councillor Potter. Any speakers for or against? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. My sincere apologies. I always seem to do at least once in a council meeting where I skip an item. So now we're up to 9.13, which is at page 96. And now this is the one that I was on before. So the recommendation is from the committee that the South Bennett Regional Council accede to the request to defer for 12 months the sale of land for overdue rates action for properties number 259260, 259270, 259850, 259240, 259340, 260140, 259200 and 269090. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Second, thank you, Councillor Jones. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we're up to 914 at 97, and it's a request for extended payment terms on property number 259250. And from the committee meeting, it's been recommended that the South Burnett Regional Council does not accede to the request to waive interest charges, as the request is outside the approved financial hardship policy guidelines, and that council approve the special payment arrangement as detailed below. And that payment arrangement is stated there from items 1 to 7 as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Second, thank you, Councillor Froeloff. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 915 at 99. And again, this has been to the committee where it was resolved to recommend to council. South Burnett Regional Council does not accede to the request to waive interest charges, as the request is outside the approved financial hardship policy guidelines, and that council approve the special payment arrangement as detailed below. As stated, items 1 through to 6. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Second, thank you, Councillor Potter. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 916 is at 101. And again, committee recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council does not accede to the request to waive interest charges, as the request is outside the approved financial hardship policy guidelines, and that council approve the special payment arrangement as detailed below. State as presented, items 1 to 6. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froeloff. Second, thanks, Councillor Jones. Any speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 917 is at 103, and that's another request for extended payment terms on property number 128850. And the recommendation from the committee is that South Burnett Regional Council accede to the request to defer for 12 months the sale of land for overdue rates action. Am I at 918? No, sorry, I've got a 918. I've done it again. I'm turning pages over. Thanks, Linnell. Sorry, 917. Is it 917, Linnell? Thank you. Yes, 917, sorry, at 103. I'm going to have to get back to OPSM and update these glasses. But officers' recommendations: South Burnett Regional Council agree to defer the sale of land for overdue rates action and approve the payment arrangement for property number 128850 as presented there. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Second, thanks, Councillor Jones. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now, up to 918, which is a request for expended payment terms on property number 165670. And the committee has recommended South Burnett Regional Council accede to the request to defer for 12 months the sale of land for overdue rates action and approve the special payment arrangement for property number 165670 as stated. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Moving right along to 919 at 107, and the recommendation from the committee is that South Burnett Regional Council does not accede to the request to waive interest charges, as the request is outside the approved financial hardship policy guidelines, and that council approve the special payment arrangement as detailed below in items 1 to 7 as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Seconder, Councillor Froeloff. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 920 at 109. And this one is a request to waive rates, debt recovery, legal costs, interest, and reinstate the disallowed discount on property number 163300. And the committee has recommended that council accede to the request to waive the legal cost of $633.49 and agrees to write off interest charges of $27.70 and reinstate disallowed discount of $103.66 for property number 163300. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, Councillor Jones. Thank you both. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 921 is at 110. It's a request to waive interest charges on rates owing for assessment number as stated. And the recommendation from the committee is that council does not accede to the request to waive the interest charges on rates owing for assessment number 1011-11000-000 and items 6 items, and you can see them there as presented. Do we have a mover? Yes, Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Speakers for or against? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge how council has heard every single one of these stories. I know there's been a number of requests to waive interest and a number of requests for financial hardship. I'd just like to acknowledge the council's rates team who have heard every one of these stories, and some of them have been quite harrowing. Definitely there are some difficult circumstances in our community, and I think I'd just like to acknowledge that council is willing to work with people when they do come into hardship, and how much work has gone on behind the scenes to actually bring these to the table and to find resolutions and solutions which mean, you know, ratepayers are paying the amounts that are owed, but that we are flexible in the way in which we make that happen. So I'd just also like to acknowledge Daryl Kerwitz. I understand he's retiring. He will be a giant loss for our council. The work he's done with the rates team for a very long time is greatly appreciated, and certainly I know in this instance, you know, these have been very difficult circumstances, and to have each and every one come to the table with a solution, I'd just like to acknowledge the hard work, the many hours of counselling on the phone that has really happened behind the scenes here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly wish Daryl all the very best in his retirement.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Shoemaker. Well said, and I'm sure that we all feel exactly the same. Thank you very much. Other speakers for or against the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker, for giving me a break from this long list. Okay, we go on to 922, which is delegation to the Chief Executive Officer under the Environmental Protection Regulation 2019. That's at page 112. And the recommendation is that pursuant to Section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009, Council delegate the exercise of the powers contained in Schedule 1 of the Instrument of Delegation attached to this resolution as appendix to the Chief Executive Officer. These powers must be exercised subject to any limitations contained in Schedule 2 of the attached Instrument of Delegation, and repeal all prior resolutions delegating the same powers to the Chief Executive Officer. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froelich. Second, thank you, Councillor Potter. Speakers for or against? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've read the report. I just note here that the instrument attached as the appendix to this report reflects the delegation that requires delegation to the council, from council to the CEO. I just wanted an update. It says here that the Environmental Protection Regulation 2019 was amended by the Environmental Protection Commercial Cropping and Horticultural Activities in the Great Barrier Reef Catchment, an amendment regulation 2021 Queensland, which commenced on the 1st of June 21. The amendment has resulted in a minor amendment to Council's ability to approve applications for relevant activities. I just wanted to understand, and then it says power to consider the relevant activity will or may have a residual impact or have regard to matters mentioned in the water quality offset policy. The residual impact will not be adequately counterbalanced by offset measures. I just know there's been significant discussion in our community around the Great Barrier Reef catchment and those regulations, and I guess I was just trying to understand, so will it be council's role to from this delegation, I was trying to understand what council's actual role in that change will be. And I understand if that has to be a question or notice that comes back, I'm more than happy for a report to come back, but that's my question.
Mr. CEO, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
I was going to say who wanted to go. It's Councillor, by reading it out, it's the language is somewhat complicated. In nice simple, we might take two parts to it, so I can answer. It is a very minor change. All it does is, well, when I say all it does, but what it does is continue to allow, if something comes across the desk that I have the ability to sign, and continue to process it through. Otherwise, we would have all that correspondence coming back individually to a council meeting. So that's literally the minor change as far as I understand the powers that already exist under the delegation. And we received through our the legal register just the amendments to move it forward. So that's the report. What we might do is actually your other part of that question, which is probably a much broader even than this, is if we can take that one on notice and we'll bring back a report on it, because it is certainly a very topical conversation at the moment and council's role in it. I haven't yet got my head around council's role in it either. So yeah, so we'd be very happy to bring back a report.
Yeah, thank you, CEO Mark. I definitely think that's important, noting the conversations that have been had in our community, and would really appreciate some insight. Very mindful that the state government regularly makes rules and regulations and then looks to council to enforce those. So really want to understand what that will mean for our council and how we are resourced to deliver on that. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Look forward to that report.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers for or against? Comments, questions? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 923 is the monthly financial report and fourth quarter budget revision at 122, and it's recommended that the monthly financial report, including the capital works and works for Queensland, as at 31/2021, be received and noted. That in accordance with section 173 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the revised 2020-21 operational budget be adopted, and that in accordance with section 170 in brackets 3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the revised 2020-21 capital budget be adopted. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Frolov. Second, Councillor Potter. Questions, comments in relation to the report? It is 31st of May, so we're probably a month down the track now, on 30 June today. But any questions or concerns, speakers for or against the contents? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we're on to 10.1, which is guidelines for the cleaning of footpaths within CBD areas at 180. Have I missed one again, Linnell? Oh, yes. Okay, well, yeah, it's just been brought to my attention that Minister Andrew, is it with us? Alan. Oh, well, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. Well, sorry, I wasn't aware. I saw you walking. I thought you might have been an interested resident, but perhaps you're both. Mr. CEO, can we ask Alan to come up and present the prayers? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Alan. So, if with the leave of council, we'll go back to item 3 and invite Pastor Alan to present the opening prayers. Thank you, Pastor.
I must apologise for being late. The time I was given was 9:30 actually, but it's obviously been confused in the translation somewhere along the line. My apologies for being late, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the invitation to come here today. An invitation which I was very, very glad to accept from our Pastor Andrew. This is not the first time I've done this, but when I come into the council chambers here, my mind goes back to 19th of April 1991 when I stood in the council chambers here, and along with a Filipina lady, I took the oath of allegiance as an Australian citizen. And people often say to me, well, what were you before that? And I say, well, I was an alien. And it doesn't mean that I was all green and had pointy ears, although some people do think that Scotsmen actually are aliens because you can't understand the word that we say. But nevertheless, I'm actually glad to be here this morning, and I'd like to share with you just a short reading from Psalm 2. Now listen to this warning, you kings. Learn this lesson, you rulers of the world. Serve the Lord with fear. Tremble and bow down to him, or else his anger will be quickly aroused and you will suddenly die. Happy are all who go to him for protection. Let us come before the Lord in prayer. Let us pray. O Lord, we thank you, O Lord, that for this council, we thank you for all those who serve on the council here. And we pray, O Lord, that they will serve the Lord with fear, tremble and bow down to him in the knowledge that happy are all who go to him for protection. So we pray, Lord, that for wisdom for this council. We pray, O Lord, that they will do what is right in the sight of God. We pray, O Lord, that they will serve you as those who serve the people here. And we pray this in the name of our Lord Jesus, who taught us in prayer, saying, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
My attention to. But Pastor Allen, you're quite welcome to join us, but we understand you'll have a busy day doing God's work, so we'll understand if you need to leave. But thank you again. Okay, so I think we are up to 10.1. Okay, guidelines for cleaning of footpaths within CBD areas. That's at 185. And of course, this has been to the committee meeting. So the committee has put forward a recommendation that Sappanet Regional Council adopt the footpath cleaning guidelines and write to all CBD businesses to promote the guidelines. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank the General Manager, Meehan, for progressing this. I'm really keen to see this happen. I know that a lot of the shop owners are keen to look after their footpath, but they were uncertain about what they could and couldn't do. I think it's disappointing that even vinegar is not allowed to be used on a footpath because it's got chemical that could affect the environment. So the water is the only product that the business owners can use. I'm also keen to see us do probably more general maintenance on the footpaths aside from having the shop owners do it, because I notice when walking down the footpaths there's sometimes leaves and mess that probably our council could have cleaned up. So I'm keen to see the standards raised on our footpaths, because I think that to make it, if we want to really make this a livable region and to raise the bar in our for our visitors' experience and for for our general being a better council, that if we can have a cleaner, more presentable footpath right across our region into the future would be good. I'm also can't wait for the day when we can afford to get one of those machines that we can actually have chemicals used, because they dry as they go. And I know that this budget we're not going to be able to afford one, but I just think into the future that would be a really good way forward. And also one of those vacuum cleaners that pick up the cigarette butts and leaves, because I think it's really important to the community to have nice, clean footpaths. So I just wanted to flag that. But thank you for the work that you've done, and yeah, really keen to see this roll out. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly I agree with Councillor Duff. We've talked a lot about livability and how important it is our communities and our CBD areas are maintained to a standard that promotes livability. I just, further to Councillor Duff's comments about the machines, yes, certainly it's disappointing that we can't afford them at this point in time, but it was my understanding as well that at this point in time they wouldn't be fully utilised. And I also understand with the upcoming works across different CBDs across our region, there will be a stronger business case into the next year for those kind of machines. So whilst I acknowledge it's not something that we can immediately do right now, it is something we are looking at in the long term, and I think this whole council agreed it's a priority for us. I just wanted to confirm as well, through the capital works and the budgeting process that we've had, we have discussed a support truck and vehicle to better equip our teams with the tools they need to better clean our CBDs. And I look forward to those outcomes over this coming year. I think we've come a long way. People in the Kingaroy community have certainly commented to me around the improvements that they've seen, and I'd like to acknowledge the work that's been happening behind the scenes in that regard. I know there's still a long way to go, but I'm really confident and happy with the conversations we've been having as a council, and know we're all committed to providing our team with the resources they need to really deliver these outcomes for our people, particularly with our region's significant investment in CBD revitalisations, which I think are key to really kickstarting our economy on the back of COVID, and really maximising the opportunities of increased visitation from domestic travellers. So certainly looking forward to more work in this space, but I think this is a great start, and just would like to acknowledge the work that's been happening behind the scenes, and look forward with great aspirations for continued improvement. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 10.2 is the Blackbutt CBD streetscape at 187. Just a little bit of background. So the proposed Blackbutt CBD streetscape project is the first stage of redeveloping the infrastructure within Blackbutt. The project includes a key aspect of asset renewal works, rehabilitating the footpaths and curb and channel, as well as sitting people with disability bays. Works are also proposed for Les Muller Park, including footpath works, playground softball, shelter replacement and other community-based infrastructure. There has been a range of community consultation initiatives undertaken, including online consultation, meetings in Blackbutt, and I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Jones for the work that he's put in leading that extensive community consultation. Thank you, Councillor Jones. So the recommendation is that Council approve the Blackbutt CBD streetscape plan design as per the attachments, including the layout per stage 1 of the master plan and footpath detail surfacing of flagstone terracotta. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jones. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Speakers for or against? Questions, councillors? Councillor Jones.
Nothing other than just to say that this will be a huge improvement to the CBD of Blackbutt, and as Councillor Schumacher alluded to in her last comments, that we have extensive expenditure planned for the rest of the South Burnett major towns and villages. So just a comment that this will make a remarkable difference to the township of Blackbutt and the whole of the South Burnett region, as it is the southern gateway to the South Burnett. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, and of course thank you, General Manager Meehan, for your leadership in working with Councillor Jones in bringing this to this stage. Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to certainly back up Councillor Jones' comments. I'm very excited as someone who grew up in Blackbutt. I've had a lot of conversations with Blackbutt residents down there. There's a real appetite to progress this, and I know there are a number of residents who are very grateful for Council's investment in the Blackbutt community. I'd really like to acknowledge Councillor Jones for the work he did, spending 2 days in Blackbutt talking directly with residents after Council released the preliminary designs and gaining that feedback. Certainly pass on my apology that certainly with the Canberra trip I wasn't able to fit that in, but I think reading through the report and the feedback that's been gained, it's great to see, and certainly I can see through the report that the residents' desire to keep that old country town feel has been front and foremost, and you can see through the report there the raised timber planters, installation of bike racks. Certainly I know in Blackbutt now you have to line up for a pie, which is unbelievable. The travellers and visitors coming through there to use the rail trail and alike, and the opportunity to actually have a safe place for them to park their bikes to get them off the footpath, I think is excellent. I'm also looking forward to continuing the work that's been done in the Les Muller Park. It's great to see it's a popular place for tourists to stop and visit. Love the colour palette and certainly acknowledge the work that's gone into the proposed parking and civil layout, noting that, similar to Kingaroy, that's designed within the current regulatory and Australian standards and to meet mandatory safety requirements. So as we have discussed, of course, getting parking, we all recognise the importance of parking for local businesses, and I know it is this council's priority to keep as much parking as we can, but I also know that building current day modern infrastructure does require some change in that regard. I'm excited to see the introduction of people with disability bays to access the Blackbutt CBD. As I've said before, I'm more than happy to walk further if it means that somebody with a disability can park closer to our CBDs, and I'd certainly like to acknowledge Council's work in that regard and really providing a community of choice across our region for people with disabilities. I think it's absolutely exceptional. I'm really excited about this project. I can't wait to get started and see the outcomes on the ground. I know there'll be disruption, and I know the team, we've learned a lot through the Kingaroy Transformation Project, and I know the team will be working hard to minimise that for local business and local residents. It's a great outcome, being that we've got that funding to support it, and I just can't wait to see the gateway of the South Burnett shined up all nice and new. So thank you to Councillor Jones and the team for the enormous amount of work that's gone into this. Absolutely can't wait to be sitting on that new footpath, having a cup of coffee and watching the visitors pull up and explore our beautiful region. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Anyone else? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Mayor, it would have been remiss of me to Councillor Shoemaker, some of her comments jolted my memory. I didn't acknowledge the work that the staff have done behind the scenes. James and his design crew and all that, Greg Jackson and Stacey Wixon and all the other people that have been involved. My job was made pretty easy down there, to be quite honest with you, with the work that you guys or those people have done behind the scenes and got all the correct and spot on information. So could you, Aaron, General Manager, take that back to the staff, please? They've done an exceptional job. And I think that's only going to be a benefit when we get into Wondai and Cumbia and the rest of the towns across our region and Nango. So thanks very much to the staff.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. Did you want to make any comments, General Manager Meehan, for work you and your staff have done? Thank you.
No, through Mr. Mayor, just a sentiment to acknowledge the team. I think we're learning our lessons as we go through these projects, which is great. So just acknowledge the team, and it's great to work in partnership with council and the community to, get the project probably to the stage where it should be on the table. So I think we've done well to get there now. So I look forward to rolling into that one with the team.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.3 is the Wondai Industrial Estate at 196. And our staff have undertaken a technical assessment to upgrade heavy vehicle access to provide right-of-way, one-way operations for 26-metre B double within the Wondai Industrial Estate, and have recommended that Council approve the proposed configuration as per Attachment 1 and B double Gazette the Wondai Industrial Estate, comprising of Old Dip Road, Bunya Avenue, North Street, Burrows Street, we've got Greenwich Street and Kemp Street to cater for 26-metre B double operations. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff. Seconder, Councillor Henshin. Thank you. Speakers for or against, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank the staff for the work. I know that James has done a lot of work in this for this project. It's been, it was a big shock to the Wondai Industrial Estate business owners when we discovered that it wasn't B double accessible. So I know that Manager James has worked very quickly to get all this to where it's at the moment, and we've had a lot of meetings with the business owners. I know that there is still some concern around Kemp Street and making it two-way. The concern is that there'll be a lot of congestion with every truck having to go around in a loop, whereas they currently go straight, a lot of them go straight down to Kemp Street to the bottom. So I think that we need to seriously look at stage 2 to make Kemp Street two-way, but really keen to support this project and get it, the whole area be double compliant, but keen to see us look to get that $300,000 to do that stage 2. But thank you, if you could pass on my thanks to the staff for the work that they've done to get it to this stage, and also to the council for supporting the project in the budget, because I think it's really important for for our region, because it's a major part of our industry across in our region, and the Wando Industrial Estate is a big player in that. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keen to support the project.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to make a couple of acknowledgements as well. Both Councillor Duff and Councillor Henson have done exceptional work down there in regards to this, because and following on Councillor Duff's comments around the work that's been done internally to make this happen so quickly, I think that needs to be really highlighted, because something like this can take a while, can take a lot of time and get caught up in the system. But again, General Manager Meehan, if you could pass on to the design section and the work that the staff have done, it has been absolutely exceptional to get a response so quickly, because this is one of the biggest employers in the South Burnett. It's one of the biggest and most proactive industrial estates in our region. And I'd also like to acknowledge this council for the smart use of the LRCI funding, both through the Blackbutt CBD upgrade as well as the Wandai Industrial Estate. I believe it's very, very smart use of funding from the federal government, because these issues are issues that would have come back onto the ratepayer, and we've been able to source money from elsewhere. So I would just like to congratulate my fellow councillors and staff and Mayor for being very smart with the use of LRCI funding. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I can't support this enough. It's great work that's gone on behind the scenes here. When this was initiated quite some time ago with talks with the business owners down there, being in the transport industry myself years ago, it frustrates me sometimes when the word heavy vehicles are used, and I can't reiterate enough. It's simply when the Wandai Industrial Estate was built in 1984, and I remember it well, there wasn't a B-double on the road. They weren't thought of back then. It was a wonderful development for Wandai, that industrial estate, and it just goes to show you how far the transport industry and the freight industry has come in the last 30 or 40 years. It's not so much, and this is what I would like to get across to the public out there in heavy vehicles. They're not putting any more pressure on the road weight-wise. It's simply that they are long. There's a configuration with these vehicles that they have to comply with, that they are only allowed a certain amount of weight per axle. B-doubles have allowed that over time with their axle configurations, and yes, they can be a little inconvenient because of their length. They're going another 12, 13 metres to what there was in yesteryear, but that Wandai Industrial Estate is an incredible asset to the South Burnett, and an absolute credit to the business owners down there and their operations that they do. So to do what the South Burnett Regional Council is doing there and working with what we've got, because it's a very congested little area when we walk around there, it's hard to get drainage and corners and intersections and culverts right there. So enormous amount of work being done there, and a little bit more to do in time. But yeah, this is a fantastic result for the industrial estate of Wandai. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly don't disagree with anything that's been said. I think it's an exceptional project. I agree, LRCI funding, it would have been difficult, extremely difficult for our ratepayers to fund a $900,000 project like this. $970,474 we're spending today on the Wandai Industrial Estate. That's exceptional. And to know that most of that funding has come from the state is just brilliant. I also would like to acknowledge the team and the work that's gone in, the feedback from our community. Thank you. It's been great to have those conversations and really open our minds to the needs of the operators in that estate. I think this is really, this project demonstrates how agile our council can be when it comes to designing purpose-built infrastructure. I'm exceptionally happy to read in the report that the design life of this upgrade is 25 years for the surfacing and 30 years for the pavement. And the value of this pavement is generally equal to the value of works, with a similar increase in depreciation of only approximately 20K per annum. I think that is expected due to the asphalt surfacing, which is fit for purpose for the industrial estate. That's excellent to read. Also very pleased to read that the use of the asphalt in this instance should reduce future maintenance over the long-term maintenance, as opposed to granular or spray sealed roads. And I just think they're the kinds of smarts. These are the kinds of projects that we really need to continue focusing on. While it's one project in Wondai, across the broader picture of our capital works programs and our ongoing operational requirements, it's projects like these that really do make a difference to our triple bottom line. So I'd like to thank the team for being so proactive and nimble in their response, and I can't wait to see it get started. So thank you, and I definitely do agree with the option for those additional works at Kemp Street. I can see the importance of that, and know this council will consider that carefully in forward capital works programs. So thank you, GM Meehan, to you and your team, and thank you, councillors Duff and Henshin, for all your work in talking to local residents and users of the industrial estate.
Okay, yeah, thanks, councillor. The of course would be remiss not to acknowledge, as we have done here today, the federal government have contributed $900,000 towards this project, and I'd like to formally acknowledge our local member and minister, David Littleproud, for his ongoing support, his government's ongoing support of our region. This is one of many grants that we get from the federal government. We often complain that regional councils, rural councils, don't get the support of the government, be it state or federal, but and that certainly is the case from time to time in certain areas. But in this particular area, in terms of local roads and community infrastructure, I feel that we could certainly be very pleased that we've got a federal government that's supporting the development of regional assets throughout Australia and including our region. So well done to the Morrison federal government for their support. Okay, well, if there's nothing further, we'll go to the vote on this one. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. The next one is 10.4, which is the Kingaroy Transformation Council Community Reference Group updated terms of reference at 201, and it's recommended that the council appoint the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, as chair of the Kingaroy Transformation Project Council Community Reference Group and adopt the updated terms of reference for the Kingaroy Transformation Council Community Reference Group. I'll hereby move such. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.1 is in-kind support for Bacon Fest 2021. That can be found at 210. And we have a recommendation here that council approve the requested in-kind assistance to the 2021 Bacon Fest. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against? Councillor Duff, I can't see your light. You'll have to just pop your microphone up. I can see you pushing your button. Councillor Duff, thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this because I know how important the Bacon Fest is, but I just think that we have a lot of events right across our region, and if there's other like groups that come forward with extra requests for in-kind or different assistance, that we need to consider that them on an equal basis, because we have some big events across our region. We've got the likes of the Burren Down races, which gets thousands of people, and Nanango Music Muster. There's some big events that probably are as big as Bacon Fest. So just wanted to flag that happy to support. Think it's a fantastic event, but we, and maybe we need to consider putting a policy in place that reflects this decision, that when there's, like the bigger events that probably do need more than the $2,000 or $3,000 that we currently give, that there's a place for them, because sometimes certainly there's just a need for more funding to those bigger projects. So just want to flag that, yes, I'm supporting it, but wanting to make sure that we do have a regional view when we're talking about other events as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Mr CEO, your thoughts?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor. You picked up a couple of points. The reasons this one's come to Council is just sits outside the policy. With the rounds for the community grants each year, and it is something, and for those who remember back when through the then ED team, Council supported a range of larger festival and events through training, which actually then included the Gameri Pumpkin Festival, which created a whole lot of community chat, for want of a better term. There are several of these major events that just sit outside the policy, and it's probably something in the new financial year, as the dust settles on a couple of other things. At the moment, if something comes that sits outside the policy, we'll just bring it back to Council through a report. The time we got this one, we just couldn't get it to the standing committee which is where they'll probably go for a bit of a chat going forward and then reflect up, given the timing on this one. I would acknowledge one thing this year the Bacon Fest has done, which has been an excellent initiative, and we've given feedback on such a thing. They have a single point of contact as a coordinator to engage with Council. So everything from the traffic management plan to the building. So it's removed a lot of the confusion and multiple requests coming through. And I would acknowledge Gail Gibson as that. Gail's been excellent to deal with and has made the process of working with them as a major festival this year exceptionally easy. But yeah, certainly taking your point, Councillor, in the short term, we'll just bring anything that's an individual request that sits outside the policy back. And then other than that, the rest of it just goes through as per the policy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr CEO. You happy with that, Councillor? Yeah, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge, how grateful I am for our council and the services we provide. Things like roads, rates and rubbish, it's, very easy. We all receive a number of complaints from our community. But the reality is, for a major event like this, things as simple as closing the car park and picking up the wheelie bins, whilst they seem like simple things, they mean a lot to volunteer groups and organisations that are hosting events. I'd just like to acknowledge the support that Council provides that's often unseen, and I'd like to give a shout out to the people who will be driving the garbage truck at 1 p.m. and 1 on Saturday, 6 a.m. on Sunday, and 6 a.m. again on Monday. That's exceptional. I think our staff are exceptional. I think they're doing work in our community that's often not seen and acknowledged, and I'm very grateful for those men and women who will be getting up to offer this level of support so we can have this economic injection into our community, certainly raise some community spirit and have a good time in the spirit of bacon. Just like to acknowledge that, Mr. Mayor, fully supportive of this request, and certainly acknowledge Councillor Duff's comments. I'm very proud to be part of a community council that does think regionally. Councillor Duff, definitely. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I think we'd all agree with Councillor Shoemaker's comments. Certainly very all grateful for the work that our staff do, particularly outside those hours on a Sunday morning at 6 a.m. That'd be certainly going above and beyond, and it's wonderful that they continue to do that as they've done for generations. Yeah, look, I suppose for me with this one, Bacon Fest is a very important festival for our region, and I fully support it in terms of its benefit, but certainly looking forward, Mr. CEO, to bringing that policy back to Council, as I'm sure everyone is, to make sure that we're getting consistency, fairness and consistency across the region, whether it be the Avocado Festival on Blackbutt, whether it be a music muster in Murgon and Ango, or Bacon Fest, that all festivals are given the opportunity to access a reasonable level of in-kind support under any policy amendments that we can bring through. So look forward to that as well. Okay, well, that being the case, if there's no further comment, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 12.1 is Systematic Inspection Program, Animal Management, Cats and Dogs Act 2008. And the committee might not realise that there's actually an act, legislation for cats and dogs. We've got there that this came to the committee meeting back on the 9th of June. And the recommendation from that is that South Burnett Regional Council approve a systematic inspection program for properties within the South Burnett Regional Council jurisdiction in accordance with Section 113 of the Animal Management Cats and Dogs Act 2008 to monitor compliance with the requirements of the Annual Management Cats and Dogs Act 2008, more specifically the requirement to register dogs. The properties to be included in the systematic inspection program are potentially all properties within the South Burnett area, both within and without the designated town areas. And the systematic inspection program will be conducted between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. on weekdays and or Saturdays, commencing on Monday the 26th of July and concluding on Friday the 22nd of January 2022. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Thank you. Speakers for or against? Those, Councillor Potter, over to you. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to make sure, because I know they're already doing door-to-door right now, and I just need to make sure that they do knock on every single door, whether they've got a dog registered or not, because at the moment, the people that have been knocking on the door, it's been brought to my attention that they're only knocking on some of the houses that may have a dog in their yard that's that they're looking after for someone else, but they're not going to the neighbour's house who do have animals. So I just need to make there's consistency in that inspection program. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Potter. General Manager, could you perhaps address the process? Thank you.
Yeah, I can talk to the team about that. They do. Part of the programs that they will actually follow up animals that have been previously registered that aren't registered this year. So in that process, they can be a bit. They're only addressing those overdue payment ones, but yeah, generally they will go through each property. But yeah, I can give that feedback back to the team that the community is looking at that.
Very good. Thank you, General Manager. Okay, so if there's no further speakers, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 12.2, material change of use, service station and ancillary shop at 4 Scott Street, Wandai. Lots as stated. Applicant SJS Fuels Proprietary Limited. And that's at 214. Now, again, this matter has been discussed in the Executive Finance and Corporate Standing Committee back on the 16th of June. And the committee have recommended here to Council that Council approve the material change of use, service station and ancillary shop located at 4 Scott Street, Wandai, and described as lots 808, 809, 810 on W 5357, subject to the conditions as stated. Mr. CEO.
Mr. Mayor, because of the nature of the approval, if councillors jump to page 223, I think it is, you actually find the recommendation on 223, which is exactly the same as the committee's recommendation, but that's, yeah, it just pushes the length down.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Yep, so we have it there at the bottom of 223, councillors. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Second, Councillor Duff. Speakers for or against? No. Well, let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay, so we're on to 13.1, which is the on-sell of remaining water allocation from BP Dam at 234. Again, this matter has been considered through our standing committee, and the committee has recommended to Council that Council do not progress the on-sell of remaining water allocation. This is from BP Dam due to the additional costs to have allocation assessed and transferred with Sunwater, potential broker fees, timelines and resources involved. Water allocation are considered an asset in Council. As such, any transfer would need to be provided for under an open public tender, and on-selling unused allocation may impact Council's water security profile during severe drought periods. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Duff. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 13.2 is the electric vehicle charging station at 236. Of course, Councillor Shoemaker has been resolved by Council that she can remain in the room, having disclosed a conflict of interest, and I'll now leave the room and stay away until the matter's finalised and call on Deputy Mayor Jones to chair and deal with the matter. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Just note that the Mayor has left the room while we deal with item 13.2, the electric vehicle charging station. Quick summary that the committee recommends to Council. Council note the report and accept the proponent's offer to contribute to the installation of an electric car charging station in the South Burnett. And the officer's recommendation that Council note the report and accept the proponent's offer to contribute to the installation of an electric car charging station in the South Burnett. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconder, Councillor Potter. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Shoemaker? Hang on, I might have the wrong button here.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Certainly, I'd just like to acknowledge this is a great example of what can happen when we're putting the infrastructure in the ground, which is exactly what we're doing with the KTP. Very excited about the prospect of having more of these across our region, but I think this is a great start. I'd like to acknowledge the staff and the team for having that mindset of looking ahead, noting that electric vehicles are coming. I know Queensland Government's already got a lot of them in their fleet, and certainly as different organisations are making their commitments to greener outcomes, I think we'll see more of them. So it's just fantastic to know that we have this conduit, we have the capacity, and as more of these opportunities come to the table, I know the team are already actively lobbying and looking for options to plug this kind of technology into Kingaroy CBD and across our region. So I'd just like to acknowledge how exciting this is, and certainly thank the proponent for their kind contribution and the work that's gone in to making this reality for the South Burnett. I look forward to many more conversations like these. I know they will come. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Thanks, Councillor. And on the back of those comments, with the infrastructure that we're providing through that KTP upgrade, General Manager Meehan, have you got any comments around that as far as the location, anything proposed?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. So the proponents, just so council's aware, the proponent is still confidential in this space. So obviously until that announcement's made, the location. So KTP has capacity to take this infrastructure through the footprint, along with other stuff. So we look forward to probably updating council on that over the next couple of months as that progresses. So. But you will see an EV charging station in Kingaroy following this one here.
Thanks, General Manager. And it's just the first acknowledgement, as Councillor Shoemaker just touched on, that the added infrastructure that we've put in through the KTP and the extra money that's being spent goes a long way to contributing towards that extra infrastructure. And this is what it enables us to do, to get on the front foot and be a leader in rural Australia. So fantastic. So we have in front of us the officer's recommendation. Oh, sorry, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Look, I would just like to say, agree with everything Councillor Shoemaker said. But look, this is what happens when we all start thinking ahead, we start thinking of the future, and we start looking towards what is possible within our region. So again, I'd like to thank the staff for this, and I would like to make sure that this is one of those good news stories, and I'd really like this one to get out into the public, because this will open up our tourism as well. And I think it really needs to be talked about and discussed a lot more in the public.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Okay, so we have in front of us the officer's recommendation that council note the report and accept the proponent's offer to contribute to the installation of an electric car charging station in the South Burnett. Moved by councillor Froloff, seconded by councillor Potter. All in favour? Or those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. I'll ask now for the mayor to be brought back into the room. Thank you. As councillor Shoemaker departs, Mayor Otto comes in.
I'm not sure who moves slower these days, Councillor Jones or myself. both got some ailments. Okay, so thanks, thanks, Deputy Mayor Jones. We'll now move on to item 14.1, and it's the upgrades to the bathroom at the South Bennett Aquatic Centre in the Nango. And we'll note that Councillor Shoemaker has disclosed a declarable conflict of interest and has left the meeting. So that's at 2:37, councillors, and of course this had been presented to a Community Standing Committee meeting back on the 9th of June, and as such it's been recommended that South Bennett Regional Council award tender SBRC-20/21-122 to Campbell Construction Company for the South Bennett Aquatic Centre bathroom upgrades as per their tender price. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Speakers for or against? I'd probably just want to acknowledge the work again that the procurement staff did with our buildings team, General Manager O'May, your team, and note that this was the most cost-effective compliant tender that council received. Okay, so we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, so Mr. CEO, I'd like to now move procedural motion. Can I? Oh no, I was going to move that we push 16.1 up while Kirsty's out, but we can keep going if you like. Can I move procedural motion that we escalate 16.1 to the next item while Councillor Shoemaker's out? I'll move a procedural motion. Councillor Seconder, Councillor Jones, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. It'll just save Councillor Shoemaker walking in and out twice. So Councillor Shoemaker has stayed away from the meeting and will do so until item 16.1 is finalised, and it's in relation to a notice to rescind a council resolution, South Bennett Regional Council lease amendment with the South Bennett Community Hospital Foundation Limited. It's at 2:56 in the agenda, and if appropriate, Mr. CEO, I just wonder whether before we go to the motion, you'd be kind enough to give us a brief introduction to such, if that's okay. Thank you.
Just finding a spare copy because I'm in a different spot in the electronic version. Okay, councillors, the Councillor Potter sponsored the repeal rescind. So in accordance with council standing orders and the regulation and the Act, council is able to repeal a resolution so long as it hasn't been actioned. This one hadn't been actioned pending some of the discussions and negotiations were going on. The South Bennett Hospital Board, Community Foundation Board, we've had two goes at having a meeting, but regrettably through circumstances haven't been able to formally hold a meeting. But all members of the Community Hospital Foundation Board have been advised that council's considering the lease options today. So the motion would be to deal with in procedure. The first part of the motion would be item number 1, that South Bennett Regional Council resolves to repeal the following resolution from the general meeting of 26 May, namely Resolution 2021-371. The following amendments being made to the existing lease between South Bennett Regional Council, the lessor, and South Bennett Community Hospital Foundation Limited. Rather than going through the 3 points, the effect of that resolution was to extend the head lease between council and the foundation for another 12 months while negotiations were finalised. I'm very pleased to say negotiations with the main tenant in the building, being South Bank Medical Group, South Bank Day Hospital, is proceeding very well. They're now, we've also spoken to, I've got one of the the consulting group subtenants left to call, so we've spoken to all the subtenants as well, bar one. South Bennett Medical Group has consented to taking over the lease for the entire building for the next 12 months. And also we've, as part of those negotiations, have sent through a list of outgoing and maintenance issues for them to give feedback on, which will be incorporated into the lease. So this will resolve a number of issues. Well, this is a good positive step forward and a staged approach to resolving a number of issues, both with the foundation and with that site. Further information will come back. So today is the staging. So those outgoings and maintenance costs will transfer across to Southbank Medical Group with the lease. Now there will be, the next stage in this journey and process will be by September of this year. I won't go into particulars today because that will be subject to another report, and there also may be other commercial and confidence matters that will reflect to council that will need to be dealt with. We're just working through the issues. But at the moment, and I would, Southbank Medical Group, Southbank Day Hospital has approached the negotiations. The future hospital has been a long-term community and council issue as far as granting its sustainability and also where it goes going forward. This maintains the hospital for the next 12 months while these next stages of the negotiations are in place, pending where those well, when I say pending, I don't want to sound negative. Yeah, it's the next stage. Now we're moving into the next stage for the future of it, but certainly, so we deal with the repeal of the extension of the head lease, so council and Southbank Medical Group. So council directly leases then to Southbank Medical Group, and it drops the foundation out of the mix. So it uncomplicates the leasing arrangement. And I'm probably reiterating, but council currently leases to the foundation, and the foundation sublets to Southbank Medical plus the other tenants. So this now is council leases to the to the Southbank Medical, and then they deal with the tenants. We will continue to assist. It's an exceptionally strong working partnership between all the parties, including the foundation board. I have a role as a council appointee as the company secretary for the foundation. And as councillors are aware, it's a totally beneficial enterprise, totally 100% controlled entity of council under the legislation. And I know I've mentioned it before, no, it is not a conflict because I'm literally council's representative to that body. So once we repeal the previous resolution to extend the sublease, and then resolution 2 and 3 get dealt with separately, and that will confirm the transfer of the lease to the Southbank Medical Group. I'm happy to take questions, but today it's procedural as far as just tidying up the leases.
Very much, Mr. CEO. In relation to motion number 1, as stated there, Councillor Potter, as the proposer of such, are you moving that motion? Thank you. So we have the motion there, motion 1, as stated there, to repeal the resolution as presented, moved by Councillor Potter. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Did I skip on from you, Councillor Potter? Sorry, we can go back. Did you want to
No,
speak
it's
before
all right.
we...
I just want to make one comment about that.
Yes, please do. Please do. Thank you.
I just actually wanted to say a big thank you to CEO Mark with the amount of work he's put into this, the amount of grey hairs. We may owe him a bottle of I just want to really say a big thank you to CEO Mark, because I know he's put a lot of hard work and effort into this, a lot of trips down to Brisbane, a lot of discussions over the phone. So I just want to say a big thank you to working on this and getting this to this stage where we're at right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. I'm sure it's a hear from all councillors. Mr. CEO, thank you very much on behalf of your council. So just confirm again, everyone in favour? Do we have everyone in favour? Is it unanimous? All in favour? Yep. So it has been carried unanimously. We'll move on to item 2 then, which is Southbank Regional Council resolves that the exception in Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 236 1BI, applies to council for the disposal by way of grant of a lease of the valuable non-current asset, which is the land comprising the whole of Lot 4 on SP 146001, Lot 5 on SP 146001, and Lot 2 on RP 7925 to South Bennett Medical Group Limited, ACN 614-558-236, known as SBMG, a community organisation other than by tender or auction, for a term of 12 months, commencing on 19 July 2021 on a peppercorn rent on terms to be agreed between Council and SBMG. Now, we will deal with this one first. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Speakers for or against? Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. The next recommendation is that South Bennett Regional Council delegates to the Chief Executive Officer the power to negotiate, finalise and execute the lease between Council and SBMG on terms and conditions the Chief Executive Officer reasonably considers are satisfactory to Council. Do we have a mover? Again, thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Duff. Speakers for or against? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Could we please call back Councillor Shoemaker? Thank you, General Manager. And again, if I can speak on behalf of our council, Mr. CEO, I would just like to reaffirm the statements made by Councillor Potter in thanking you. You still don't look too great to me, but thank you for all your hard work. There's a lot of history in this. There's a lot of people involved, and clearly it has been somewhat of a process, but we're heading in a good direction, and I know we're all extremely grateful for the long hours of work you put in. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. And if I could just acknowledge all those comments, it's an extremely complicated arrangement, if I can be polite, but actually extremely optimistic of, says he, famous last words of where this will go, and if this goes as well as we think, it will secure continued medical services for the region for a long time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. CEO, and well done. And of course, I'm sure if this all goes to plan, we'll have a very happy and very grateful community. So, Councillor Shoemaker, as you've probably gauged, we've escalated 16.1. So we've now dealt with that. We'll move on to 14.2 and keep going. Lease on 62 to 64 Lamb Street, Mergen. That's at 238. And we have, again, this matter has been brought to the Standing Committee meeting. And as such, the committee had recommended to Council that, find the right page here, that South Bennett Regional Council vary the existing lease to Commonwealth Bank of Australia for the lease of the shop space Part A and B of Lot 1 on CP M55124, 62 to 64 Lamb Street, Mergen, with the following terms as presented in items 1 through to 6. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter, thank you. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 14.3, Mergen Anzac Day Commemorative Committee at 2:40. And again, this matter has been to a Standing Committee meeting where it's been recommended that Kathy Duff be nominated as a suitably qualified person to chair the Mergen Anzac Day Commemorative Committee, and further, the CEO provide a response to the Mergen RSL sub-branch regarding the nomination. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Speakers for or against? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 14.4, Management Model Analysis for Ringsfield House at 2:41. And again, the matter's been through a Standing Committee meeting. Mr. CEO, did you want to provide some introductory comments?
Yeah, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one's a little bit complicated as far as just process. So at the Standing Committee, it was left lay on the table, but the resolution had already been moved and seconded. So that will be, once it's lifted, there's a procedural motion to lift it from the table. Some of the further information and assistance that was needed, the original report spoke as if it was a management committee. Under the Act, there is no legal head of power under the Act or regulations. So it's just been tidied up to make clear that it is an advisory committee. What we've put in officer's recommendation, so once first resolution is a procedural resolution to lift it from the table, then 9.5 that's moved by Councillor Froloff and Councillor Shoemaker comes to the fore, so that's dealt with. What is suggested in the officer's recommendation is that that resolution is amended to read as as that, and that just tidies up the wording, and then it also puts a review in for the first 12 months. So rather than just leaving it there for 2 years, it actually is an annual review, and then just gives a little bit more of is this going where we want it to go, or is there other options that we can explore? And certainly going forward, it's such an important asset for the community in the region. I would suspect there's a lot more work that will be once we get this committee up and running.
Thanks again, Mr. CEO, for that introduction. So we have a procedural motion here that the item be lifted off the table for consideration by council. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. The matter's now at hand. And as Mr. CEO indicated, we have an amended recommendation as presented there, Council. That Council adopts the recommended model of an advisory committee, and that Council adopt the terms of reference, that the advisory committee consists of the following structure: a chair, a booking and event coordinator, gardening advisor, marketing and tourist advisor, volunteer manager, museum curator, social services and community development advisor, and 2 councillors, and that the advisory committee are to develop a strategic plan that incorporates a business plan, landscape plan and event plan, and provide communication to council, and encourage community use and hire of the facility, provide quarterly updates to the portfolio councillor, and that the advisory committee is to be reviewed at 30 June 2022 and conclude its duties by 30 June 2023. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Froloff. Speakers are for or against the motion. Councillor Duff. This is the amendment. We're dealing with the amendment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supportive of the amendment. Just really keen to see that we work closely with the community groups, with this advisory committee when we go out to, I know there's going to be consultation around the actual advisory committee membership, and that we work closely with NATDA and with the history room and all of those people, because I think that it's going to be a good news story and a success story only if we get the support of the community, because it's, as has been said, it's a very, very important part of Nanango's history. It's a very important part of our region's history, and it's a wonderful asset, but we need to make sure we get this right. And I think part of that is to bring those community groups with us, because I've been really keen to work with those community groups to get good outcomes. And I think that, you know, they've got skin in the game and fire in their bellies, and it's really important that we don't, you know, that we keep them on board and keep working closely with them. So I just want to flag that for, you know, as we move forward, and just also thank the staff. There's been a lot of work in behind this, all the different models. I think there's up to about 7 different models they looked at across different different council areas about other history facilities and different models, and this is what was recommended. So I'm keen to see it tabled and supported, but yeah, I think it's got a rider on it that we absolutely have to work with those community groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. If there's no other councillors wishing to speak, we now have the motion in relation to the amendment at hand. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. So the amendment's now been passed and it becomes a substantive resolution as presented there. I'll call now for a mover in relation to such. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Is that correct? Oh, it's straight to vote. Straight to speakers and vote. Sorry, thanks, Mr. CEO. Anyone wish to speak? Anything further, Council? No, happy with that? Okay, shall we move on? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. And again, thank you for the councillors, Mr. CEO and your staff who've been involved in bringing that to this point. Okay, so we'll move on now to 16.1. No, sorry, we've done that. 17.1. List of correspondence pending completion of assessment report. Now that one is at 260, and we get these come to council from time to time. The recommendation in relation to such is that the list of correspondence, as stated there, pending completion of assessment report, be received. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, thanks, Councillor Henson. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 17.2. Delegated authority reports at 261. These reports to be delegated to the CEO. So it's the recommendation that the delegated authority report be received. There are 2 attachments there. As such, do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Speakers, go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, now we are at the final item, which I'll get to the page, 339, Mr. CEO. And we have a matter here, and the recommendation is that council considers the confidential report listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. The matter is 18.1, lease agreement between SB Care and South Bennett Regional Council, with as presented in the agenda. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Jones. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Mr. CEO, we now go into closed session. Thank you. Microphones off and video off. Thank you. Okay. I'll now move that council moves out of closed council into open council. We have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. In attending to item 8.1, council, we have a proposal that 18.1, the matter lay on the table until the July general meeting. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now call the meeting closed at 11:12 a.m. Thank you all for your participation. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll see everyone back here for the budget meeting at 2 p.m. Thank you.